telling you that it has a huge impact on what you listen to. On your mood. So I'm going to change it to something else. Yeah, I'm really sorry, I'm a bit confused, to be honest. Because I'm uncertain of what to do. It's also a bit of a mess. I don't really want to clean this now. And I think that's part of my truth, right? You know, that I say I'm doing things the way I want to do them because I think I know best, right? What's good for myself. Certainly having a clean board would be best now. Right? Because there seems to be this need from some people that you're clean all the time. But I have to say, I like a bit of a mess sometimes, right? Because I think if I'm super concerned about cleanliness, that I'm missing the lesson that the forest is also a bit dirty sometimes, right? But of course the forest cleans itself. And what I actually wanted to do was clean this apartment and show you how to do that. And I feel like the listening to music is disturbing me because it's too loud. But I also feel like I can put this time to better use than to just go and play in the park or, let's say, listening to music, because what I really want to feel is, you know, what's happening inside of me. And how can I do that if I'm constantly in the presence of others? Or I have to be alone sometimes to feel how I feel. But what you may realize is that when you're just alone all the time and you're doing nothing, you're just gonna feel shit. And that's why I basically constantly keep myself occupied until I feel like now it's the time to sleep, right? So if I cannot sleep at night, I think. I work on my problems that keep me awake. Right, and that's where spiritual enlightenment comes in, because what's enlightenment, right? It's like they say the Buddha had realized something, and then they asked, you know, what was he doing 40 years after he was enlightened? Well, he was figuring out the shit. Or he was just like holding the peace, if you will. Because that's what you do. When you enlighten to something which I would describe as having a vision or seeing something very clearly, which is probably your purpose in life. And so when they say the Buddha enlightened under the, you know, fig tree or something, there was a whole series of events that led up to that moment. So his whole life basically led up to the point where he sat there and felt like, you know, now I see. But then what you see is basically, oh, that's what my job's gonna be, right? Because that's what you're looking for. What is my purpose? Nobody's just looking for enlightenment. People are actually looking for, what do I want? What's my purpose? Why am I here? Because why am I here is a much better question than asking why are we here? Because that's like, right, projection. And so I feel like I've learned the most simply by figuring it out for myself. Which goes to say, like, if you want to know how to cook or you like food, and you say, you know, oh, I cannot cook, and you just eat microwave stuff, then it's going to stay that way until you realize that the best way to truly enlighten is to learn how to cook, right? So now I'm teaching you a little. This is coconut fat. This is a pot. This is something I can cook with. You see, this is fairly simple. You know, I have a good knife, I have a good chopping board, that's about it. You know, these pots are fairly simple, they're not like super expensive, it's just something somebody gave to me. You know, and they wanted to get rid of it. Or so they said. Maybe they just wanted me to have this. So, the point is, cooking is something that comes with experience. And the first times I cooked, you know, I knew nothing. I didn't know how to cut onions, I was very clumsy. So I kept practicing. Right? And so this is a celery, I'm not sure how it's called. This is a basic ingredient for soups. So you fry onions in fat. You add bay leaves already, 2, let's say 3, right? They have an intense taste, so be careful. Then you take some cumin seeds, because I'm gonna make chickpea soup, right? And chickpeas are like hard on the stomach, but not if you soak them like I do. And then you fry that, roast it a little, and that gives this soup the taste. So also not like, you know, I take fat more than most people, I would say. You know, I like fat because it gives taste and it gives me energy and it helps my body to work. And they say that a ketogenic diet is best for your brain activity, because if you eat sugar, it's like always very quick. You have a rush, like, wow, fuck, I'm really high on sugar now. Which you probably won't say, but that's what it is, right? I'm just gonna wash this. And for some reason, what people always do with this, you keep stirring, of course, but you can also let them sit a little so that they get brown. You get rid of the skin, and you see I have no peeling knife, but I have one good knife, which goes as vegetable knife, I would say, which suits me because I'm a vegetarian cook, right? Mostly vegan. But I do eat also milk and cheese occasionally. But I try to do it as little as possible, and also I eat eggs. And I'm also not really picky about the kind of cheese. If I want cheese, I eat cheese, right? But if I want meat, I eat chickpeas and lentils. And then it's gone. So whoever wants to tell me that we need meat, fuck that shit. I need no meat. I have more energy than most people that eat meat. And that's saying something about mindfulness, spiritual enlightenment, or spiritual growth, or spiritual awakening, and the wish to switch to a more vegetarian lifestyle. Like to be more peaceful, because if you eat meat from animals that have been slaughtered and bred in such a way, then you'll, become the shame of that, basically. And you have to see how they live, like they're in constant panic. I also make sure that I don't cut myself, which is why I'm trained to hold my hands like this, so that you don't chop. You always cut like this. So you have to learn, where are my fingers, which is why animal movement is a good way to increase the stability of your hands, for cooking as well. So climbing actually helps you to cook better. Which is, also, I will start at some point to cut with my left. But at the moment, I feel like it still needs more strength. So I'm working on that, and it's tough. Because you could even say that if I work on my left side, I work on my partner as well, right? From a distance, I can strengthen my feminine side when I'm longing for her. Wow, now it's getting a little bit too dark. This is a bit out of hand, this thing. It's like, there's too much heat. And you cannot balance it properly. But you know what? I think it's alright. And I think what I thought was burned, yeah, it got a little bit burned. But I think it's okay. You just add more fat, and then I like food also a little bit charred. And that's why what I'm going to add now is, actually has nothing to do with it, but it's the connection that I make. These are mustard seeds, yellow with brown. I mix them. I'm just gonna add it like this. I've actually seen a friend do it. A friend who I haven't been in contact with for a long time, and which I feel like is a necessary thing at the moment, because I'm quite unbalanced. And I think people feel that. And I think they're waiting for the moment until, I'm together with my spouse. My Shakti, as they say, I think, like, they say it's the spiritual wife. But Shakti is actually something else. It's just this, I think it's the female of the creation. Shakti und Shanti, I believe. I think maybe they were brothers or something. And I'm fairly certain that Shakti means the divine feminine. And if you are destined to be with the divine feminine, you're going to have a wife. And if you are destined to only find the divine feminine in yourself through meditation, like, for example, Yogananda from Autobiography of a Yogi, who was a student of Sri Yukteswar. And that's just what I pick up from listening to people like Ram Dass, but also by actually reading some books. I have read and finished the Autobiography of a Yogi, and it clearly opened me up to another way of seeing the world. And so has listening to Ram Dass, and so has making my own experiences. So it's not only about listening to others, it's also about making experiences and learning from them. Because if I only listen to others, or I only read books, which I would put into the same category as listening to others, then I have no way to confirm whether what they said is true. Which is why science is a very stupid approach, because, you know, certain people make certain experiments and then they tell us what came out of it, and then we are simply supposed to believe it and say, yeah, that's the truth, right, you know? But the truth is that everything is relative. And the standpoint that science is taking is like, you know, we figured it out. Well, the basic teaching of spirituality is, you know when you know that you know nothing. Because I can never say for certain what's really going on. I may have a strong feeling towards myself, you know, this is good for me. But I can never say exactly whether that's also good for others. But the more experiences I make, I realize, alright, you know, I think what's good for me is also good for others. And so I can become like a little bit selfish. And then I practice self-love, but I also maintain love towards others. And then I get to this point where I can say, you know, today I'm going to cook for myself because I appreciate my own presence enough that I want to sustain myself in the best way that I can. You know, I want to learn cooking so that if I have a bad day, I know how to make pancakes without causing an awful lot of trouble. So I've worked with doughs on an insane basis. Like I've I've baked breads in all kinds of ways. I looked at how people made bread. I read about bread. I made a lot of bread with yeast. And then I made bread with sourdough. And then I also drank coffee and I roasted my own coffee and I got heartburn, like really insane heartburn. And then started my journey for basically dietary enlightenment. You see, you can have different fields of enlightenment. But if you're interested in the history of mankind, you know, you can read these books. To me, that's all just bullshit because, I mean, everything that happened is happening today again. You know, it's just looking different. And that's basically where this book, Cloud Atlas, is coming from. You know, it's all happening at the same time in all different kinds of shapes. So you could be, you know, you could see yourself during the times of people like Napoleon. And you could understand who you would have been. So I was thinking about how they used to wear these wigs, you know, during certain times. You know, these wigs like in Pirates of the Caribbean. And I tried thinking about it, and then a friend said, you know, yeah, that was just the fashion at that time. And you wouldn't even have, like, thought about it. You would have just worn one, basically. And then I said, yeah, but the people with the wigs were probably also the people that today just run to the doctor all the time and then just accept whatever drugs they're being given that are supposed to alleviate their pains, but that basically just treat the symptoms, which is what like proton pump inhibitors do, which is what they give you to treat heartburn. But the cause of your heartburn may be actually your anger, that you're super suppressing your emotions. And maybe you're just drinking too much coffee. And maybe the reason you're drinking coffee is because you're incredibly angry, and that's just making you heavy. And in order to alleviate that heaviness, you drink coffee, but because you're unconscious that you're doing it, and you're unconscious of the fact that you're really angry or emotionally unbalanced, you just keep doing it until it gets worse and worse. And I had this and it showed as heartburn. And then I started looking at things, and I realized when I work with my emotions and I adjust my diet a little, I actually have no heartburn anymore. So you could even see it like this, that you say, my heart is burning. For what? Then you start asking the question, why is my heart burning? Because I'm not giving myself what I want. Oh, this is like a radish carrot. Weird what they brew up in these places. Like, why? I don't even know how that's going to be, but I'm just trying to experiment, because normally you wouldn't cook with radishes, right? But I never liked eating them like that. So maybe they really make soups. Plus, I'm not really a fan of raw foods, to be honest. Maybe one reason is that they're so toxic these days. Because they're being grown in a toxic environment. And that's why it actually makes sense that it's better to cook raw food. You know what they say about Steve Jobs, that he switched to a raw diet and then he got cancer. There may be a connection. But maybe he just wanted to die because people screwed him over too often. Right? And I'm trying to keep the peace, right? While I'm cooking, I'm like focusing on, this is nice, right? And that's a challenge, to keep loving cooking while you're cooking. And that's also the challenge, to keep loving your wife, while she's your wife. And maybe she infuriates you, but that's even more reason to love her, because what other woman could do that, right? Bring you to the point of desperation, because that's the greatest challenge of all, which is why, if you have a wife and she's making you angry, like, don't get angry at her for making you angry, because she's just showing you're angry, and you have to transform that. What she's basically showing you is that you're, holding your true potential down, because when you're angry, you could just sleep with your wife more often, and then she wouldn't have to fight with you in such a way. Because you're trying to express what you're feeling with words, while you could be expressing it, through cooking, through loving, through, I don't know what, keeping the space clean, which is hard, I know, blah, blah. But it's also not that dirty, I feel comfortable in here, and I think that's what counts. Now, I'm not quite sure, because I had them in this water for far too long, it feels like. I think it's better to rinse it off. Yeah, because it smells a little bit like funny. But I think they're fermented now, and they're easy to digest. And I'm just gonna put these chickpeas in. I rinse them now as well. It's like this, I feel okay to use it like this. Yeah, because if something disgusts me, I'm just gonna throw it away. And I sometimes get food from supermarkets, people give it to me. And sometimes these things I feel like they're so disgusting, you know, I'm just gonna chuck it. And that's also okay then, because like, let's be honest, I mean, there's so much food available in the world. But I want to stir this. But I think at this point, wow, it smells good. It smells good. I'm still gonna add spices. This probably has to cook for at least an hour. So make sure to take the time when you want to cook. You also have to make space, right? Okay, instead of watching a movie tonight, I'm gonna make a cooking session. And I find it best to do it without music. Because music is great in the beginning, but after a while it just like disturbs you. Maybe not at first, but if you cook more and more and more, you start loving cooking so much that any sound is just like, leave me alone, because it's the energy of somebody else. And I often want to just keep the space clean from disturbances, because I find life disturbing already the way it is. And that's true. And I know it's true because I feel that it's true. And not because I think it might be true. It's like, you know, I feel that it's true. What I just said, but then I just forgot what I said. But I know it was true, and that's then what an insight is. And every insight you have sparks other insights if you keep asking questions, which you will eventually do if you just get, you know, keep feeling worse and worse. And that's then when your spiritual journey starts. And you start taking responsibility for your life and the choices you make, because you realize that you're the one that's creating this mess. Right? It's like, oh yeah, sure, man. I was the one who was doing this. This is turmeric. You can also make this into a tea. And now I use, because I want this to be a bit spicy, I'm gonna add cayenne pepper. This is like cooking that has a bit of, oh yeah, what I just added was salt, just if you're really insecure. You know, now I told you, if you know what I mean. This is nutmeg, which is raising your energy levels. You know, it's like activating your sexual chakra. So it may even help you, you know, it may help you to have sex with your wife, or to just be creative and active and be a good father or be a good man, or, you know, contribute, whatever. Just be a little bit careful with it because it's very strong. And if you know what you're doing, you're gonna be a little bit gentle with these spices. And I've like hammered myself with them for a while until I started to realize, oh, that's how heavy they are. And because I like garlic and I like the taste of dried garlic, because it has a very different flavor, just gonna add some. And because it made me smile, I know it was good, if you know what I mean. You know, that almost could also go this is coriander powder in the direction of making ramen. Let's say you would drop the chickpeas. This is your broth, right? It doesn't matter how you make your broth. If you make the broth like this, it's good to also add soy sauce and to also add, like, you can of course always add vegetable stocking, but also like dark sesame oil or pumpkin seed oil, like a nutty flavored oil. Yeah, there may even be peanut oil that tastes like peanuts, which you get in Asian shops, usually these things, sometimes even in Turkish shops or Indian shops, you know, wherever you are, depends. And that's then basically it. Now you just have to let it cook, and you will have soup in the end. And that was a more complicated thing than I would normally do. Like normally I was making like very easy things. Now I just want to show you the pancake, because I'm already hungry. And what I realize is I have no desire to clean now, but I have a desire to eat. That's the pancake that I made. It's a good pancake. I'm just going to put it in the oven for some time so that it heats up. And I'm just going to eat one. Apricot. An apricot jam is something you can do fairly easily on your own. All you need is sugar and apricot. And you cook it for some time. You slice the apricots, take the pits out, can add some cinnamon if you like. Could even add some nutmeg, just be careful like I said. Could even add some turmeric. And then it suddenly has healing properties instead of just being sweet. Of course, already making it with love is good for healing, right? And then you slowly but surely learn to provide for yourself. Of course, you have to clean the glasses you use. Rinse them maybe with hot water or something. And then you cook your jam, and boil it for some time, and then you fill it into these glasses, put on the lid, so it has to be probably a glass jar with a metal lid. You close it and you turn it around and place it on the head, on the lid, on some kind of like heat resistant surface. Probably best to place it on either wood maybe, or just put a cloth. And be careful because these things are hot, of course. And you put hot stuff into glass, and just make sure you don't burn yourself, right? And if you do, don't drop the glass, right? But be cautious also. So you have to pay attention, because if you like constantly like this, looking around and talking to people and listening to what they say, you may like drift off and stand there and like, no, your focus has to be on what you're doing, because otherwise you're gonna cut yourself. and you can talk to people, but then your focus has to be still on the cutting, and you still can have a conversation. But you also may just not respond, right? You always have the possibility to just say nothing. Yeah, I'm a bit impatient. And this is jam that I made myself. It's orange jam. Or thing is also, when I've eaten all the jam, I can make more jam. Which is why if I feel like eating jam, I can do so. Right now I have to be inventive because I barely have any... I barely have any cutlery, which I like because if I have almost no cutlery, I have to do my dishes at some point. And then I'm also making sure that there are not going to be so many dishes that I'm going to spend hours cleaning them. Alright. So this I will keep cooking, and then I have something to eat, either when I come home or already when it's done. Yeah, this is gonna be alright. So a little bit concerned. Yeah, just have to clean the lid. And because I don't want to do dishes every day, I realized I don't really use the bathtub. Sometimes I may. But I can just keep the dishes in there. Because I didn't have a sink. If I would have a sink, I would just keep it in the sink or next to the sink. But I soak them already, so they're almost, right? They're almost already, they're clean. And then if I need something, I can just rinse it quickly. Sometimes I just don't like doing the dishes. And that's my way of dealing with that. That's like allowing yourself to just be a little bit messy. And I'm making slow food. It's better for your heart, it's better for your health. You have something to do other than sitting around looking at your phone, watching movies. I'm actually standing now. This is good for my spine. I can also stand here and move like this. And at first, sure, it's a drag. So sometimes I just turn off the heat. And then I let it, and then I turn on the heat again. Some people, they always cook on full heat. That's stupid. Because now the heat will keep for a while. And then this food is slowly soaking into, being done. But still, occasionally, I always bring it to a boil. And then I turn it off again. I think that's how you would have sex then. To stretch it out a little. You come and you like, wow. And then you let it slow down until it comes back again. And you do that, you always go just before you would have an orgasm. And then you keep building it up, and then in the end you just explode into each other. Or out of each other. Yeah, I think that's it. Cheers.